Good afternoon, and thank you everyone for joining us for the informational webinar about the opportunity to become a B Impact Fellow. My name is Heather Van Duzen. I'm the director of the Fellows Program here at B Lab, and I'm joined by Katie Lee on my team, who will be helping us through the process. Our agenda today is I'll give a bit of an introduction to B Lab, the community of B corporations, and the B Impact Assessment, just to give you a context of where the Fellows Program is coming from. And then we'll go through the opportunities that will come to B Impact Fellows, details about the fellowship, some FAQ, and have some time at the end for questions. So to start at the beginning, the vision of B Lab is fairly big. We here at B Lab, which is a nonprofit based in Pennsylvania, we serve a global movement of entrepreneurs, business leaders, investors, consumers, and policymakers with one unifying goal, which is to redefine success in business. And the way we want to redefine that is so that right now, instead of competing to be the best in the world with the best financials and the best quarterly reports, all companies would actually compete to be the best for the world, best for their workers, best for their communities, best for the environment, so that we're actually using business as a lever to create change across the globe and create a more just society that shares a durable prosperity for all. So there's a lot of work to be done there. And our theory of change here is that the role of B Lab, our critical path, is to make it easy for all companies to use their business as a force for good. And the pinnacle of that is really competing to be that best for the world company. Along the way is B Corporation certification. But before that is really around protecting the mission, embedding the values of the company into the legal DNA itself, and actually measuring what matters. This is the key piece of enabling all companies to use their business as a force for good, and it's really where B Lab has focused its efforts and where we'll spend a lot of time today. Many of you are probably most familiar with the Certified B Corporation designation that B Lab runs. This is a way for us to recognize folks who are already using their business as a force for good, who have already redefined success in their business to mean more than just their financial performance. Certified B corporations meet higher standards of social and environmental performance, transparency, and accountability. Then it's similar to a fair trade, organic, or LEED certification, but it's for that whole company, not just a particular practice or a particular product. And many folks often ask us, why did you have to go out and make another certification? Aren't there enough of them out there? And there certainly are. There certainly are just too many. But what we found is that there wasn't a way to identify good companies. There might be a way to identify good practices in that your building might be LEED, and so you might be reducing your environmental impact. But it didn't tell you anything about what was going on inside that building, what your product was, how you were treating your employees. And that's across the board, that you might have an ESOP that's really doing well by its employees, but doesn't tell you anything about the impact on its supply chain or the environment. Or fair trade, where you really know a ton about that supply chain, but not around anything else. And so this is really looking at the company as a whole and being able to recognize and identify the leaders who are using their business as a force for good and meeting those higher standards of impact and transparency. There's a lot of great folks who are part of that movement of companies who have become certified B corporations. There are over 1,500 B corporations around the globe now in over 40 countries and hundreds of industries. And it's folks that you might recognize like Ben & Jerry's or New Belgium Brewing or Patagonia, but also folks that you might not immediately think of when you think of a great company. We have banks like New Resource Bank or Triodos They're really focused on providing environmentally sound banking practices to folks in underserved or underbanked communities. We have home health care folks who are providing employment opportunities to folks in underserved communities and actually providing services to folks who might not otherwise be able to access them. We have insurance companies, law firms, your solar installers, but also your cheese makers and your glasses manufacturers, all of whom have this one unifying goal of really wanting to set the bar for what it is to use business as a force for good. With the power of this community and partnerships with legislators and law firms across the country, we've been able to create better legal structures for mission-driven companies to make sure that all these folks who are using business as a force for good now can continue to do so over time. I won't go into the nitty-gritty of all the legal details around corporate structure in the US, but suffice it to say that before the creation of the benefit corporation structure, it was actually pretty difficult for a mission-driven entrepreneur to find a useful corporate structure that would give them all the benefits of the corporation while still being able to maintain a commitment to their communities, their employees, and their environment. The benefit corporation structure, which is now passed in 31 states, enables all companies to take advantage of that corporate structure while making sure they're building and embedding their mission into the legal DNA of the company, enabling them to make sure that they can continue with their social and environmental impact through new management, new ownership, and for decades to come. We've also been working not just with the community of certified B corporations, but also investors, fund managers, supply chain managers, and business associations to create a platform called B Analytics, which is a way for us to measure and aggregate the impact of portfolios, supply chains, a business association, so that we can really understand the impact of those portfolio companies and look at impact at not just the individual company level, but at the aggregate level, and give those more institutional players the ability to encourage companies to use their business as a force for good. But there is much work to be done. As many states have we've passed legislation, and with 1,500 B corporations and scores of B Analytics users, there are 7 million businesses in the US who currently aren't part of this movement, and millions more around the globe. And again, our goal is to enable all companies to compete, not just to be the best in the world and the best, but the best for the world. And so the question really is how we leverage the leadership of this community to impact behavior change much more broadly. And our primary way that we think we can do that is to enable all of those companies to measure their impact, because we manage what we measure. This is an example from a firm in Philadelphia that talks about how going through the B impact assessment gave them clarity to their values, helped them to see where they can do better, enabled them to manage their impact. Similarly, Cook Foods in the UK was able to use the assessment as a deep change management tool and led to a plethora of programs to improve their impact, because they finally had a way to actually measure their impact and therefore to manage it. There are roadblocks on that journey, though. It takes time to go through an assessment and understand how your company has impact. It can take expertise for particularly sticky questions. The assessment itself can feel intimidating, that folks who don't necessarily have that impact as the core of their business might feel intimidated by the process of going through an assessment. There might be a lack of motivation or a lack of access, whether technical or language barrier. There have been roadblocks for folks who want to be able to measure their impact, partners who want to encourage all of their companies to measure their impact, but just have come up against these barriers. And so that's really where we are right now, is if we're here to make it easy for all companies to use business as a force for good, then we need to make it easy to take the first step. And that's where the fellows come in. This program is focused on training talent to help all companies measure what matters, create campaigns of community partners across the country to enable all of their member companies to measure the impact of their company on their communities, workers, and environment, and really start guiding hundreds and thousands of companies through this process, driving behavior change and leading us down that path or up that mountain towards a shared and durable prosperity. We also hope that the creation of this fellowship program, along with folks who are working at B corporations across the country and around the globe, will really start to lead the way for folks and job seekers and employees who will demand more than just a paycheck, but the ability to make a difference. Another key piece here is partners. B-Lab itself will never be able to reach those 7 million businesses in the United States just from our own email blasts or networks, and certainly won't be able to get to the millions more across the globe. And so we're really figuring out how we partner with organizations like government entities, business associations, investors, large corporates who have broad supply chains to get the word out to communities of companies who wouldn't necessarily self-identify as part of this movement and engage in measuring what matters. And so that's where we want to focus the attention of fellows, is to help these kinds of partners embed these programs into their operations and encourage all of their related companies, whether they be a supplier, an investee, a member of an association, to measure their impact. A really great example of this is our current partnership with the New York City Economic Development Corporation, who we've launched Best for New York with. This is a program to inspire, equip, and celebrate New York City businesses who are using their business as a force for good. And so we're reaching out through the networks that the EDC has access to really get the word out around the impact assessment and the ability for companies to really measure and manage the impact they have on their communities, employees, and environment. The first class of being Impact Fellows, most of them are actually working on the Best for New York campaign as we really focus our efforts to create this idea of a regional focus on community-based practice to encourage all local companies to measure what matters. So that's the kind of the basic context for what we're doing, and I want to dive a little bit more into the tool that we use to help companies measure what matters, which is the B Impact Assessment. For those of you who aren't familiar, this is a way to kind of go through all of the ways that companies have an impact on all of their stakeholders. It's an online portal, making sure that it's accessible to as many people as possible. And it's a free online tool that measures impact across all areas. So it's transparent, dynamic, community-based, and really dives deep into measuring a company's impact on its workers through everything from compensation benefits, work environment, opportunities for employee ownership, community impact, whether that's through their supply chain, their commitment to the local community, diversity efforts, charity and service efforts and commitments, whether that's around their environmental impact, around energy use, facilities, or their manufacturing process, or whether it's really around their business model. Are there companies that are creating products that are serving the poor or that are immediately reducing the environmental impact of companies and people? Are they creating high-impact supply chains like a fair trade process? This is a way to really get a holistic 360 look of all the ways that a company has impact, get a baseline, and enable companies to then manage and improve. Just to give you a quick snapshot of one company that has used the assessment as a guidepost for how to manage their impact. This is Dancing Deer Baking Company in Boston, Massachusetts, which is a great company that's always had a values-driven management and always been excited about working with their local community. But when they took the assessment, they realized that there definitely were areas to improve, and this gave them a framework to assign priority, to assign responsibility to particular team members, and to really create new ideas for that leadership on how they could be reducing their impact, creating a great place to work, and supporting their local community. And so you can see that as a result of taking the assessment, they did quote a whole bunch of things, everything from offering paid time off for their employees to volunteer, launching a non-GMO cookie line, incorporating as a benefit corporation, and a slew of other things that won't fit on the slide but are really creating an impact and improving the impact for dancing deer baking. So with all that context, the idea here today is I hope that you guys are all excited about applying to be a Bee Impact Fellow. And really the best reason and the main reason to become a Bee Impact Fellow is that this is a position that will help in which you'll move the needle. You'll be working with companies and communities to help those companies measure their impact and start to improve their impact so that we're all creating a new definition of what success in business looks like. B-Lab believes that these kinds of Measure What Matters partnerships with companies and partners who aren't currently part of the sustainable business movement are key to actually creating the kinds of behavior change across the board that we need to get towards a more shared and durable prosperity. And you'll be working directly on those initiatives, first at B-Lab and then in the field. Of course, we think that it'll also be useful for you personally. You'll hone your skills in everything from project management to communication outreach, as well as, of course, impact assessment. You'll develop your network as you work directly with hundreds of companies over the course of your fellowship and have access to thousands through the reach of your cohort and the broader B Corp community. You'll hopefully use this as a way to jumpstart your career into the impact economy. We know that this is a 2-year program, and we wish that we could hire all of our fellows to work at B-Lab forever, but this will hopefully be a great start to really explore where you want to take your skills, see all kinds of ways that companies are using their business as a force for good, and then take that experience out into whatever the next step is on your path in the impact economy. And of course, you'll be part of the leaders. B-Lab is recognized, and the community certified B corporations are recognized as leaders in this movement to use business as a force for good. And you'll be part of that community, part of that movement, and enable you to inspire others for years to come. So enough with all the broad strokes, but you're probably all waiting for is kind of the details on the fellowship. So let's dive into that. The fellowship is a 2-year full-time program. So it's a 2-year service program through private enterprise. Just want to emphasize that it is a full-time commitment, so folks who might have other academic or professional commitments would have to make sure those are wrapped up before the start of the fellowship. The first of those years will be spent at B-Lab, building skills and learning from the leaders in the B Corp movement. And the second year will be spent at a community partner to help them launch, embed, and or accelerate a Measure What Matters campaign to encourage all of their member companies to measure what matters. The fellowship will start with intensive training on the Bee Impact Assessment and Quick Impact Assessment tools, as well as the Bee Analytics data platform and all of the related work that B-Lab does, as well as business skills including project management, team building, relationship and people management, and public speaking. There will also be, of course, plenty of opportunities to bond with your fellow fellows, as well as the rest of the B-Lab team, both in the main office outside of Philadelphia, as well as our other offices in New York, San Francisco, and Colorado. Of course, most of your real training will be from doing the work with the B-Lab team. So you'll start with that 2 weeks of training and then go right in to working with the community of certified B corporations, as well as our Measure What Matters partners. You'll work mostly with the B-Lab review and Measure What Matters teams to do on-site verifications. This is a process by which we go on-site to certified B corporation facilities to verify their performance on the impact assessment and make any necessary adjustments. You'll do remote verification and recertifications, where you're really doing a deep dive into the operations and products of companies who are either applying to become certified B corporations or who are going through that remote verification to keep their certification, or who are going through a recertification process. This is a really great way to get an in-depth understanding of how impact works, both at small companies and at scale, because you'll be working directly with the operators and leaders of certified B corporations who are facing those challenges every day. You'll also learn from the experience and expertise of the B Lab review team, who have worked with hundreds and thousands of companies who have gone through the assessment, and be able to really access those resources and expertise as you first shadow those calls and then begin to lead them on your own. As part of that work with the review team, that'll give you the opportunity to learn about best practices from the folks that you're talking with, and develop with the standards team best practice and how-to guides, so that, again, we're making it easier and accessible for all companies to learn more about how they could create impact on their communities and their workers, and make that available online through the impact assessment portal. During your first year, you'll also work with the Measurement Matters team as they work with cohorts of partners who are learning about the impact assessment, the B Analytics platform that enables them to aggregate, assess, and analyze the performance of all of those portfolio or member companies, and walk them through a process of how best to reach out to those companies that are part of their network, encourage them to not only take their impact assessment, but improve their scores, and then retake it to measure and track that improvement over time. You'll also be working on that reporting and analysis piece of things, so that we help our Measurement Matters partners create really compelling stories using the data behind that B Analytics platform that can then talk about the impact that the partner is having to their funders, their shareholders, or other stakeholders. In the second year, you'll be based at a community partner, again, where you'll be focused on working with that community partner to develop a Measurement Matters campaign and have all of those member or portfolio companies go through the assessment and improve their impact. And that will take a variety of forms. The first wave of outreach will probably include a lot of educational workshops and webinars around how to get started and demystifying impact assessment. We often find that creating peer circles of companies who might be in a particular geographic or industry cluster can also be a really useful approach for that. And so you might be leading peer circles of, for example, restaurants that are members of a particular chamber of commerce, who can go through the assessment together, learn from each other about what each other is doing to create a great place to work, or creating a great local supply chain, and use that peer process as both an incentive to get through, as well as a way to create shared learning. And then you'll also do some one-on-one consulting to take companies through the full B impact assessment and plan improvements. The mix of these things will vary pretty significantly depending on the type of community partner that you might be at and what the relationship with their companies is. And so, for example, if a fellow is placed at a chamber of commerce, it might make more sense to do regular workshops where members are invited, paired with one-on-one consulting, so that there are examples of member companies who've gone through that assessment and have a great experience. And if you're maybe working through a fund manager, it might be more about a peer circle where a fund goes, all companies in a fund go through the assessment together as a peer process, and you're working with a variety of funds over the course of the year. In any event, all of the time that you'll spend with that community partner will be about making sure those member companies are getting the best value that they can through the B impact assessment, and really equipping the partner to learn from you around how to do the B impact assessment, how to help companies through it, and then how to embed this type of program into their operations moving forward, so that once they no longer have that fellow with them, they can still continue to encourage and create incentives for all of those companies to go through the assessment and continue to manage and measure their impact. Again, like community partners are not yet determined, and they may include a variety of institutions that are interested in advancing this movement. That could be accelerators and incubators, chambers of commerce, corporate supply chain departments, either folks who are currently part of the B Corp community or folks who are just getting into this movement. It might be a fund manager or investor. It might be a government agency, as is the case in the Best for New York campaign, or it might be an industry association, for example, the Natural Products Association or a Pet Industry Sustainability Coalition. We do expect to place the Impact Fellows in teams of 2 with a junior and senior fellow on each team at the community partners. Though because we are not yet clear on who those community partners are and what their needs might be, there may be some fellows who are placed individually at particularly strong community partners, or there might be a really great community partner that has access to a large swath of companies, and we might place additional fellows there. This will all be determined over the next year or so. And so just a recap, for year 1 and year 2, year 1, the whole cohort will be together at the B-Lab headquarters in Berwyn, Pennsylvania, working with the B-Lab review team and Measure It Matters team with the current community of certified B corporations, as well as cohorts of Measure It Matters partners. And then in year 2, you'll be placed either as individual fellows or teams at, working with a community partner and their network, focused on helping companies go through the assessment and really working with the community partner to embed this type of process into their operations. Okay, and just go through a little bit of an FAQ on the process. Our most frequently asked question is who can apply? So the fellowship is intended for recent MBA and bachelor's degree recipients who have a passion for using business as a force for good. There has been a significant interest in the fellowship from professionals who are not necessarily coming through a business school program, and therefore the senior fellowship opportunity is available to folks who are either coming from that MBA or professionals with at least 5 to 8 years experience, or potentially have a different graduate or professional degree. Please do note we will not be able to make additional accommodations for non-traditional applicants. The compensation and time commitments are standardized across the fellowship. Anyone who kind of comes in underneath that 5 to 8 years experience would be best suited for the junior fellowship position. That doesn't mean that you have to be coming right out of school. If you've been working for a couple of years and you're kind of in that mid-career path, please definitely apply. And if you do need any clarity on which track would be better suited for you, please feel free to reach out and we'll talk about that on a case-by-case basis. On a related note, as I mentioned earlier, the fellowship is a full-time commitment. So candidates who will not have completed their studies or any other professional commitments by June 20th, 2016 will not be considered. And there also cannot be any other significant academic or professional commitments during the fellowship. This is a full-time position, full-time and potential for more time position. So this is not necessarily something that you want to do while pursuing other opportunities or pursuing a secondary degree or something like that. And right now, the fellowship is currently open only to candidates who are eligible to work in the United States without sponsorship. As we are growing the community globally, we do hope to create similar opportunities in other countries and to open up that pipeline. But right now, B-Lab is a fairly small nonprofit based in the U.S., and the Fellows is going through this U.S. location and none of our global partners. And so that does restrict us on who we can have as our employees. In the 2016 to 18 fellowship, we are looking for 6 top-notch fellows to fill this second class of B Impact Fellows. For those of you who are familiar with our first year of fellows, there were 12 in our first year for the 1-year program. And because we are expanding this to a 2-year program, we are constricting that number to make sure that we have sufficient support and resources for all of our fellows over the full 2 years. For compensation, senior fellows have a $45,000 annual living stipend as well as a $5,000 completion bonus each year. We will reimburse fellows for silver level health insurance, which they will purchase independently through one of the healthcare exchanges. We'll provide 3 weeks sick or vacation time per year, as well as some limited relocation costs each year. I believe this year it was at the $750 for relocation, and so you would have that both for Philadelphia move as well as for the second move at the end of your first year. The package is similar for junior fellows. That's $30,000 total in the first year, so that's a $25,000 living stipend and then a $5,000 completion bonus, moving up to a $30,000 living stipend in their second year with that same $5,000 completion bonus. And again, that silver level health insurance reimbursement, 3 weeks sick vacation time, and relocation costs. On geography, in year 1, fellows will work at the B-Lab headquarters in Berwyn, Pennsylvania, which is very conveniently located toward public transportation, and so many folks might choose to live in downtown Philadelphia, as about half of B-Lab staff does, or there are lots of other communities in the suburbs that are an easy access to Berwyn. In year 2, of course, the fellows will be at their community partners. They'll be working out of their community partner's office on a day-to-day basis. And of course, we will make sure that we're communicating regularly with the full cohort and with B-Lab to report out and share challenges or best practices, as well as regular gatherings in Philadelphia for training and knowledge sharing, both as you head out into the field and at the close of the fellowship program. On the selection process, the applications are now available at bcorporation.net/fellows. Please note that the application platform does not enable folks to save information. You can download a PDF on the first page of the application and work offline. We recommend doing that so you can make sure you're checking all your grammar in Word and not relying on the web platform. And then once you're happy with all your answers, revisiting the WUFU site to submit your final application there. If any of you are wondering, WUFU is actually a conglomeration of the Wu-Tang Clan and Foo Fighters and is one of the better application platforms that B-Lab has found, mostly because of the name. The applications are due at the end of February. In March, we will select our finalists in preparation for in-person interviews the first week of April, which will be held at B-Lab headquarters outside of Philadelphia. So we will ask that our finalists travel to Philadelphia for a 2-day selection process. After that, we will announce our fellows in time for a June 20th, 2016 fellowship start date and then move in for training. On training, we will provide housing for fellows for their first 2 weeks at a local university at Villanova, as they are looking for local housing for their first year. For folks who need more time to find local housing, we can extend the housing at Villanova at the fellows cost through July so that you have more time to find something local if you haven't found anything by June 20th. And with that, I'll end and ask if there are any questions from folks on the line. And just to clarify, I know this is in the webinar format, so you're not able to verbally ask, but you can use the chat bar in the GoToWebinar portal to type in a question, and we will do our best to answer. Okay, so our first question is, what characteristics or types of experience are you looking for in applicants? For the most part, we are looking for driven, intelligent folks who are passionate about using business as a force for good and are excited about the work that they'll be doing. We are definitely looking for folks who have excellent communication skills, both written and oral, and will actually ask for a sample presentation during the application process. We're also looking for folks who are really great at developing relationships. This is something that is key to both our work here at B-Lab as we work with the Certified B Corporation community, but more importantly, as we work with folks outside of our kind of usual circle of folks. So being able to develop relationships with companies and partners who may not self-identify as connected to the community of companies using business as a force for good, and showing them the value of impact measurement and tracking over time. Beyond that, there will be some need for comfort with quantitative analysis and kind of computation. And we do have a preference for folks who are bilingual, especially in Spanish or Portuguese, as we know that many of the community partners will be working with communities of companies who may not have English proficiency. So we had a question, do applications need to either be senior or junior fellow, or can you explore both as options? We'd like applicants to apply to just one of the tracks. If you have a question on where you'd be best suited, you can feel free to reach out to us. And we will keep that in mind if there is an application in the junior fellow section that feels like it needs to be bumped up, we'll do that. And similarly, if there's someone who perhaps mildly overestimated their experience, we can ask if they would be open to the junior fellow position. We don't really have, so we have another question on what age range are we expecting? If you are partnered, will community partnerships be placed based on partner's job location? We don't have any expectations as far as age range. There was a pretty broad swath of folks who came in last year, and our current fellows are everywhere from right out of school to kind of mid-late career professionals. And so anyone who's interested can apply. We cannot promise anything on placement. We can certainly hope to accommodate any preferences based on other factors like a spouse's job location, but we currently don't know where those will be, and we can't guarantee a particular placement for any particular fellow. We had another question on how many spots will be available for junior fellows. We expect a 50-50 split of 3 and 3 junior and senior of the cohort. We have a question on, for the junior fellows, are you mostly looking for recent graduates from business majors? Not necessarily. Experience with businesses is a plus, as folks will be working with those, and it's useful to have background there. But the cohort this year had degrees on everything from design and environmental sciences to business to sociology. So there's no particular degree that would be required, especially at the junior fellowship level. We had another question on what feedback on the fellowship have you received from the first class of fellows, which is a great question. We'll hopefully actually be able to set up some interactive sessions with current fellows over the next couple of weeks. We're just trying to juggle that scheduling process. Much of the changes in the program is based directly on feedback from the current fellows. So the current fellows had a 1-year program with a 5-week intensive training up front, all of them focused on the Best for New York campaign. One of the biggest pieces of feedback was that this wasn't enough time to really understand the intricacies and capacities of both the B Impact Assessment and the B Analytics platform. And they also, while they're excited to be working with the companies who are competing to be Best for New York, felt that they missed out on an opportunity to work directly with the community of certified B corporations. So the expansion of the program into a 2-year program where fellows are working directly with that community and where they have a full year at B Lab, really getting to know and understanding, again, all of the versions of the assessment and ways to do reporting and benchmarking and analysis through the B Analytics platform is in direct response to feedback from the current fellows. There's also a bit more on how we can really look for partners who are able and focused on really embedding the Measure What Matters campaigns over time. And so we'll be using all of that feedback as we go into the community partner application process to make sure that we're finding really great hosts who can really leverage the skills and passion of the fellows to the best extent possible. The next question is, having moved to a 2-year fellowship, is the current thinking to have the next cohort be in 2017 or 2018? The current thinking is to have the next cohort be in 2017. However, the fellowship program is fairly new, and we are experimenting with a variety of different approaches to the fellowship, and so that may change. And so we expect to have another cohort coming through next year, but that is not a guarantee, certainly. We have a question on how are community partners selected, which is a great question, and there are really a number of factors, the most important of which are they have really strong relationships with a high number of companies who would not ordinarily opt in to becoming a certified B corporation. So that's like a basic profile of a general Measure What Matters partner. And then in addition to, because we do want to leverage partners to be able to really get the word out to much larger communities of businesses. In addition to that, to be a fellows host, there are a lot of things that we look for as far as capacity of the management team to make sure that they can integrate the fellows into their workplace, mentorship opportunities, ways for fellows to get involved with that organization and making sure that we're putting them in organizations that can really take advantage of them. So there might be some smaller organizations that have those kinds of relationships, but that just wouldn't be able to leverage a fellow to the fullest degree. And so we want for our hosts to be folks who have sufficient support, resources, staff, and management, and most importantly, excitement for the work that fellows are doing. And so to give you the current example, the City of New York met all those criteria in spades of really wanting to get out to all the cities and the companies in New York, a lot of resources to be able to support the fellows, and then the kind of connected community partners that the fellows are at whether it's the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, the Business Outreach Center, or the Small Business Services Center. We're committed to providing a great work environment and integration of the fellows' work into their team. And so that's a kind of a broad look at what we're looking for in that community partner. We had a question around negotiating salaries. Honestly, there is no negotiation of salaries for fellows. That has not been an issue with this year's cohort. This is not a typical kind of full-time employment position. This is a 2-year, pretty narrowly defined fellowship program, and so the offer will be the offer, and there wasn't negotiation this year, and there won't be negotiation moving forward.
Having been paid $45K to negotiate after for our next position if you're a senior fellow, but 45 seems low.
Okay, and so I'm getting a little clarification from Katie that it might be more about setting the tone for your next negotiation. And I think that while it certainly could be a factor, the fact that you'll have had such a broad experience and in-depth experience with this community will set you up really well to go into your next negotiation in a strong position. And you'll have to ask someone with some more specific experience on some tips for negotiating and who says what number first. But we haven't had that as a challenge that's come up with this year's fellows. And yes, we will be able to send out the PowerPoint from this afternoon to all of the folks who've registered. Great. Well, that seems like all of the questions that we've had today. If there's any other follow-ups, please feel free to reach out at fellows@bcorporation.net. And I hope to see all of your applications coming in soon. Have a great afternoon.